Hello chess lovers, Suren here, and I have a very interesting game for you played between the 8th world chess champion Mikhail and Bulgarian chess player Nino Kirov. This game was played in 1974 in Novi. Now let's see what happened on the board. Tal had white pieces and he started the game with e4, c5 by Kirov, Sicilian defense, knight f3, e6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4 and knight c6. Black goes for Taimanov variation, which is one of the most flexible lines at Black's disposal. Black develops the knight to a natural square and maintains a full range of options as to the placement of his kingside minor pieces, as yet determining his central pawn structure. Tal himself was playing this variation, and still this occurs regularly in top level games. Knight c3, which is the main response to knight c6, a6, bishop e2, queen c7, white castles kingside, knight f6, bishop e3, bishop b4 and knight a4. A tricky move. White is both not allowing black to damage his pawn structure on the queen side, and also in some lines this knight can jump on b6 square. For example, now if I move like b5, then white can play knight b6. Of course, queen takes b6 can be met with knight takes e6. This can be very unpleasant for black. Or after knight b6, if rook b8, then white can exchange the knight on c8 square and then can challenge black's pawn structure on the queen side. And of course this line favors white because already black has to solve several problems. Let's go back, but in our game after knight a4, black castled king side. We see the exchange of knights on c6 square and f4. Tal will try to organize an attack on the king side. Bishop e7, knight b6, rook b8, knight takes c8, queen takes c8, e4, knight d5, bishop c1, the pawn on b2 square was also hanging, f6, black instantly is challenging white's center, and c4, Tal is kicking away the knight from this active square, bishop c5 check, king h1, knight e7, e takes f6, rook takes f6, bishop d3, and overlooking Tal's next threat, queen c7 was played. Well, it was better to activate the knight by bringing it on f5 square, but instead after bishop d3, queen c7 was played, which steps into a simple tactical shot. Can you find Tal's next move? Ready? He simply captured on h7, king takes h7, and here comes the queen, queen h5 check. White is forking the king and the bishop is winning back the lost bishop, and in the end of the day white is a pawn up. Although black managed to open up the h file, and now black will try to organize an attack using the vulnerability of the h file. Knight f5 was played. Already there is a direct forking threat. Rook f3, Tal is covering the third rank, rook h8, bishop d2 and g5. Black is playing very aggressively. Of course, you can't capture on g5 because there is a mating threat. But after g5, Tal made a mistake and played g4, which actually allows black to equalize the game. It was better to play bishop a5. If queen b8, then this time bishop c3. If g4, then rook d3. If queen takes f4, then queen e5. Now black has to be careful because if rook takes h2 check, then king g1, and in the end of the day both rooks are hanging. That's why after queen e5 black should exchange the queens and then rook d8, though still after bishop c7 white is managing to win the pawn on d7 and white has an advantage. But Tal failed to find this line, and after g5 he played g4. Now the knight on f5 is hanging, but Kirov played king g8. He's connecting the rooks and is coming after the pawn on h2, although we can't call this a knight sacrifice because after g takes f5, rook takes h2, black can easily win back the lost piece. King g1 and d6. Well, if a move like rook takes d2, then the queen can penetrate black's camp, and these checks from g1 a7 diagonal are not dangerous because white can successfully neutralize all the threats and then can give a perpetual check. Of course, King H7 now can't be played because of this Queen G6 checkmate. Let's go back, but after King G1, instead of winning the bishop, black decided first to kick away white queen. D6 was played and Queen D4, which turns out to be a mistake, after which black is gaining a huge advantage. It was better to place the queen on e3 square, from where it can both attack the pawn on e6 square and also protect the bishop. If rook h1 check, then simply king g2. All black can do is to give some checks. There is no mating threat to white king, and of course winning this rook can be extremely dangerous, because in this case already black can even lose the game. Rook b3 can come. If queen takes e6, then f takes e6, and this pawn is actually unstoppable. If king h7, then rook h3 check. After the exchange of rooks, this pawn will march forward towards the 8th rank, and if we move like king g7, then this steps into bishop c3 check. Let's go back. But after d6, Tal played queen d4, and now he will face serious problems. e5, f takes e5, d takes e5, queen g4, rook h1 check, king f2, rook h2 check, king g3, e4 discovered check. Look at this. This is probably one of the rarest positions when you can see Mikhail Tal's king being chased in such a brutal way. Rook f4 was played, rook h3 check, king g2. Here we see a repetition of moves, and then only now rook 1 h2 check, king f1, queen d8. This queen is both protecting the pawn on g5 and is eyeballing on d3 square, and believe it or not, but after this move Tal resigned. Let's have a look. What if, for example, rook e1, then queen d3 check, and then rook h1 check, and then rook h2. If queen g2, of course this simple rook takes g2 is also winning, but queen h3 looks powerful. And if rook g4, then queen f3 checkmate. A very impressive checkmate, I think, and a very messed up position. And understanding that his position is hopeless after queen d8, Mikhail Tal resigned. Thanks for watching, and sorry for disappointing you, because this time Mikhail Tal lost, but anyways, I hope that this game was instructive and interesting for you. Here are more suggestions for you for more games. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will see you in the next video.